Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
To start, that means we've got.
And welcome in. The new season begins, and we can officially wipe the nasty taste out of our mouth. We don't need to rely anymore on off-season news, coaching, whatever, to get our juices flowing. It's time. We got dudes in uniform. We got plays getting made in the next week and a half. Today we saw some highlights from running backs, quarterbacks. We got a press conference from Chip Kelly and Ryan Day to go over. But first, there's something that's been irking me, and maybe you too. And unless you don't follow the news, you've undoubtedly heard that Marvin Harrison Jr. essentially flaked on a press conference at the Combine. Now, this story was framed as if Marvin had a scheduled time, committed to it, and then just no-showed, left everybody hanging. Now, Marv has shown us in the time that we've known Marv how responsible he is, how respectful he is. Not only is he an all-time great Buckeye on the field, but it's somehow probably even less argumentative to say he's an all-time great Buckeye off the field. We're talking about a kid with no ego. Amazingly, the son of a Hall of Famer with every gift in the world who would rather spend his Saturday night in the Woody Hayes with low lights working on the Monarch machine by himself. Did it so much that they had to tell Marvin, listen, you need to have somebody in here with you, okay? You're here too much by yourself. And he did it, and he kept going. And that's how he spends his spare time. I've not met Marvin personally. I've not been in the same room as Marv. But I've talked to a lot of people who have, and we've seen a lot of statements from people who have and characterizations of Marv the person. And every single one comes back about what a crazy, nice gentleman he is. He's just a shy, sweet young dude. And thinking of him big-timing anybody is absolutely ridiculous. He's definitely not someone that would be irresponsible, and he's definitely not someone that would be rude. So when you saw that headline, you may have known exactly what happened, or you may have said, that doesn't seem like Marv. And there's a reason that doesn't seem like Marv, because it's not true. So I'm going to clarify it, because I don't care if 2 people or 50 people or 100 people watch this. I'm going to say my piece when you go after a 22-year-old kid who did absolutely nothing wrong. So every website and every newspaper ran this headline. Adam Schefter ran this headline. Marvin Harrison Jr. abruptly no shows for the NFL Combine press. It was everywhere. The story was total garbage. Now, if someone wants to say Marvin did not hold a press conference, that's a fact. Feel free to say it. Feel free to take of it what you will. But Caleb Williams, who will probably go number 1, is the type of guy that has a lot of people questioning things about him. Caleb Williams didn't do any of his medical. He didn't do anything at all. This has a lot of the media types all worked up because he didn't participate in their thing. This is their opportunity to see him, talk to him, etc. And people are looking at this situation and now trying to somehow lump Marvin in with this. Look at these selfish guys. Like, listen, Marvin is nowhere, and he's nothing like Caleb Williams, for one. Okay? There's no questions about Marvin. But to try to lump him in with Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams didn't participate in anything, including medical, is absurd. I really wanted Marvin to participate in the Combine because I wanted to go watch him selfishly just smoke these guys, but he's got nothing to gain from it. We all know he's going top 5. Frankly, Caleb Williams doesn't have anything to gain from it either. So these guys just sound really bitter at this point. Anyway, to attempt to frame this Marvin non-story as if he had a scheduled press conference and had everyone waiting on him, then just didn't come is flat out wrong. It's correct that Marvin did have a scheduled press time because every single Combine participant has a scheduled press time. If anyone's not familiar with how this works, every year at the Combine, there's a big media room and a podium up front. The press sits there in the conference room, and the players just cycle through all day long. Every dude's got a little time slot. Now, the Combine goes on for more than half a week, and it's broken up in position groups as to what day you're going to be there. That's the day you're going to be working out, and that's the day you're going to do your little press junket, your little 15 minutes with them. So, as we know, the media who wrote these garbage stories knew that Marv didn't participate in any on-field work. Marv wasn't even in Indianapolis the days that the wide receivers were doing their on-field work because Marv came in Thursday, day 1. He did his measurements. Then he met with the brass of several franchises. Then he went home. Wide receivers weren't working out till Saturday. This is when Marv's scheduled 15 minutes time with them in the rotation would have been. Well, Was he supposed to stick around from Thursday to Saturday to do this little 15-minute monkey session with these idiots? As luck would have it, I just did a story last week about what happens in this little NFL press conference room. So Buckeye linebacker and combine participant Steel Chambers stopped in that room for his 15 minutes, and he stopped the press conference maybe 3 minutes in, and he says to the guys, listen, I want to ask you guys a question instead. And Steel continues to ask them, what 4 animals would you take into war if you could pick any 4 animals and why? Now, you get 4 animals, you got to come to war with me and my 4 animals. Steel chose an elephant, a tiger, a hippo, and a bear, grizzly or polar, depending on the climate, and I appreciated him for making that bear comfortable as they went to war. Of course, I couldn't miss the opportunity, and I chose to go in mounted on horseback and bring 3 animals with me, and I think I just broke the game. Get that message to Steel. I think I outsmarted the game. But anyway, the point is, this is a super unserious, ridiculous format where these dudes are just playing patty cake with these guys, and it's basically just a throw-in interview to ask them a couple goofy questions and get their personality. Other highlights of this very serious format that our diva wide receiver missed. Texas Tech defensive back Tyler Owens, he doesn't believe in other planets. Illinois tight end Tip Riemann, he went over his theory on birds, specifically that birds aren't real. He believes they're created by the government as spy technology, and they recharge when they're sitting on wires. So that's the type of crap we're dealing with, that Marvin was supposed to stick around for 3 days when he wasn't participating to go do 15 minutes of this. Wait around for that, okay? Now, I just told you that Marvin was in and out on Thursday, and the wide receivers went Saturday. So how was the NFL reporting machine coming to the conclusion that Marvin Harrison Jr. abruptly stood everybody up? Unsurprisingly, it seems to be the incompetence of one single employee, in my estimation, because the NFL lackey that communicates from the players to the press in that room came in and said Marv won't be available right as his session was about to start. He gave no reason why. So even though the NFL knew that Marvin was gone because the NFL arranged the early weigh-in slot for Marvin on Thursday, along with the meetings, presumably, like they do for all non-participating guys that come to the combine to interview and take their height and weight, the NFL Draft Countdown, Shane Hallman says, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't show up to a scheduled press conference at the combine yesterday. Combine officials shrugged and acted like they didn't know where he was and what was happening. What baffles me is they knew what was going on and they knew he wasn't going to be there. They weighed MHJ early so he could leave the combine since he wasn't working out. Why not cancel the press conference? Why act like you didn't know where he was? Well, Shane, I can't say definitively, but I'm going to speculate here that it was just an error by one employee. But I can speculate because I'm John Q. football fan, and as John Q. football fan, I don't have to practice journalistic integrity. I also don't have the resources and contacts to send a text message to someone and say, hey, what's the real story behind why Marvin isn't here? Now, I know who does have those resources and contacts. Every single one of those grown men in that room with their little recorders and their laptops that are playing patty cake with the prospects all week. Those guys sure have those numbers to send out that text and verify, why wasn't Marvin here? They definitely have it. And they probably could have just asked someone right outside the door when they walked out to get their next bag of Cheetos. They sit in that room all day. Now, Marvin gave them 15 minutes of time off, so I'm sure they went out and got a little air. They could have asked anybody. They could have sent a message to anybody, but they didn't do that. Instead, they all chose to write these stories with salacious headlines framed as though Marvin Harrison called a big press conference. They all got in their cars and drove to that press conference to hear Marvin Harrison talk, ask him a bunch of super serious questions, definitely not about animals or his favorite conspiracy theory, and Marvin Harrison just didn't show, didn't bother to call, made him wait for 45 minutes in the rain. That's how they framed this story. Now, we know by the time that they ran these stories, they had every opportunity to get the facts of what actually happened here, but they chose not to, because this is way more interesting, and this seems really out of character for Marvin, that it almost seems like something must not be right. So it really sucks people in, and it's a headline that generates a lot of interest. And whether it's truth or not doesn't matter. That's not the point. But the sad part is that a very small percentage of people are actually going to know what went on here. They're just going to read that headline, not even read the story. They're going to read that headline, judge Marvin, go on about their day. And 5 years from now, when Marvin Harrison's name comes up, they're going to recall this memory of, oh, yeah, he's one of those guys, one of those jerk diva wide receivers. And that irritates the hell out of me. It really does, because Marv isn't a nonsense guy, and he damn sure isn't a disrespectful guy. So he declined the invitation to stick around for 3 days to participate in this goofy show here, right? Because that's what it is. It's a goofy show. Because while he is an unbelievable prospect, he's not the easiest guy to write about, okay? Despite having a Hall of Fame dad, he's a shy guy, somewhat boring guy, right? Because he just does everything right. And I'll be totally honest. If this was someone else, maybe even another Buckeye, I don't think I'd be so fired up about it. But I've seen people the last month try to take anything they can to try to knock Marvin down because they just can't seem to get over the fact that the dude really is that good on and off the field. And it's pathetic and it's disgusting. He's a perfect gentleman. He always has been. And he outworked every single wide receiver in that draft. Outworked them, and he probably didn't need to. And it's very rare. It is very rare to find a guy with this kind of mix of dedication and these kind of physical gifts. And that's why he's the most can't-miss wide receiver prospect I've ever seen. So, to the fourth and fifth rate reporters who were in that room and every editor who ran those ridiculous, misleading headlines, you did wrong. You should run your corrections and make them just as big as those cover pieces, but you won't. You're hacks, and you will never stand out in your field the way that this young man will. And on behalf of Buckeyes everywhere, you can kindly pound salt. That gets me really fired up, guys. I'm telling you, man. I don't know if you've seen it, but for the last month, I have just seen nonstop. What angle can we go at to try to say that this guy really isn't the best wide receiver? That this guy's better than him? That guy's better than him? Look at this production here. I mean, it's just insane. It's as if you folks just can't accept that what you're seeing is actually real. Yes, he is that big. He is that fast. He does have that insane knack to get his feet in bounds. He does catch every ball his way. His catch radius is bigger than anybody else's. And he's that great off the field. Oh, and he outworks everybody on the team. And he did that at Ohio State. He outworked everybody. I mean, I'm telling you, we would see the beat reporters doing their little pieces on the field at the Woody, and everybody would be gone except the guy with the vacuum and Marvin on the Monarch machine. And it is so impressive. It really is. When you're coming from the background that he's coming from, you could imagine the kind of ego that you would develop as a kid, just naturally. We've seen it 1,000 times. He got none of it. He's an absolute dream. He was probably just a total dream to coach. He's a dream to root for. And they just can't seem to get over the fact that he's just that good. And it bothers me, man. It really bothers me. And they're trying to lump him in with Caleb Williams. Like, get out of town, dude. These are not anywhere near the same type of fella. And I don't like Caleb Williams. I really don't. And I think the Bears are total idiots if they turn the page on Justin Fields and go after Caleb Williams. I mean,